I was looking in the back of the room to see if we had handouts for this. I'd sent some to Dave, and, well, we just may not. I kept finding more of my handouts on getting into challenging shows, and that's a good handout, though, so maybe I'll just do that talk again if need be. So, well, guys, I'm excited to get a chance to talk to y'all today about strategic planning. This is going to be a little bit of a different message, a different format. Let's be honest, I'm session one. Most of you guys are either tired, you're not caffeinated enough, you went out too late last night, or you're wishing you had gone out too late last night. One of these many, many fun things, but that's okay. I'm going to do my best to make it worth your time tonight. Tonight? See, apparently I went out. All right. So, here's the thing. When it comes to actually strategic planning, you know, Stephen, he gave me some recognition there for getting a chance to help spearhead this concept within our division. But honestly, guys, I'm just kind of like the herald. And I don't know if, I don't want to get like all biblical on y'all, but I don't know if you guys know the story of John the Baptist, okay? John the Baptist was that crazy guy in the wilderness who like wore animal skins and ate bugs, okay? Like, and he's like, hey, look at that guy. He knows what's up. That's me. Like, I don't think I'm the best qualified person to teach you all these strategies, but I think I'm the best qualified person to teach you the effects that these strategies can have in your organization. So this is ultimately something where I have no problem telling you that the person that is the best equipped and best able to do all this is our very own Josh Muller. And so if the biggest takeaway that you have from this is just challenging the level of proactive planning that you have in your organization, then I think we've done well. And my goal with this is that hopefully this can just stimulate even a few more conversations within your own organizations. And hopefully now you also are all visualizing me in animal skins eating bugs. So if that's the case, then I've met my secondary objective. So, Josh, I think we do have a handout for this. I'm not sure if that's in the back of the room anywhere, but that might be worth pulling out in just a sec. All right, so if you're a note taker, there's a couple things that you might want to jot down. When it comes down to strategic planning, we'll kind of get into the whys, but there's kind of two parts to this talk I want to share with you guys. First off is why you should do this, like why this must be a priority in your organization. And then the second part is really how to actually implement this in a systemized way. Kind of share some of the things that we've done. So as far as the whys, okay? What's the old thing? When the why is strong enough, the how will reveal itself. It's a great quote. Okay? So as far as why you should, first off, taking time for proactive planning and problem solving, it helps you identify challenges that are coming ahead. All right? And you can't overstate how important that is. We spend way too much time as entrepreneurs putting out fires. Most of our time that we spend as entrepreneurs, it feels like, is putting out fires. But the reason you need to do this is because it allows you to work through systemized processes to get in front of these issues, these things that could derail your program, these things that could derail your goals, these things that could prevent you and your people from having the 2019 that you are meant to have. One of the other biggest things, and I think this is, if there's one area that maybe I have been able to add a lot, is by doing this process, it allows you to get your influencers on board, okay? And that is one of the most important things as a leader you've got to be confident doing. You have to be confident doing. Strategic planning and taking time to think out what's coming, what are the challenges, how are we going to face it, how are we going to roll this out, how are we going to measure our progress? How are we going to check in with all the key players? You know what I'm saying? Like, the best part about this is it allows you to get your influencers lined up. Because one of the things in TGP that people always recognize us for is the fact that we have just little to no drama. And I always laugh, and I'm sure I've shared this story before, but last year I had someone tell me, yeah, you know, things are cool there because, you know, you guys just don't have any strong personalities. It's like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, have you even met me? Okay, like more or less Chelsea and Brad and Kelly and Stephen Decker and everyone else. Guys, when you go through this journey though, you're able to go, who are my influencers? How are they going to feel about this? What are the conversations we need to have? And by going through that process, by earning it, because sometimes people say, no, I'm going to do this because it's the right thing to do, or it's the fair thing to do, and I'm going to just die on the hill of morality. Okay? Well, that's fine, but I don't want to die on any hill. okay? I would much rather get a chance to do this. And so much of the conflict, so much of the resistance that you feel is because you're not fully considering who are the influencers and what is their response going to be to X, Y, and Z. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why learning how to prioritize this is an important part of your program. It's going to make a huge difference, getting your influencers on board. The other big thing is that it allows the team to work together for big initiatives. It allows the team to work together for big initiatives. Rally the troops. Unleash your team. Unleash your team. There's a theme that I've had, I think, over the last year and a half, and I shared this with DVMs a lot, is that in every business, at all times, 100% of the time, there are bottlenecks. There are things that are limiting the flow of just information or productivity or sales or something else, recruiting, whatever. There's always a bottleneck. There's always a bottleneck. And what happens is when you are put on some pedestal that you're supposed to have all the answers, you're supposed to be able to identify every issue ahead of time, address it perfectly, make sure no one's feelings get hurt, make sure we never have a down quarter because sales are automatic and we're just owed growth and it should happen anyway, right? Right? No, of course not. Thank you, James. Of course not. Guys, that's insane. That's insane. Why would any of us want to be coordinators if that's the standard we must be held to? Like, it's ridiculous. Thank you, Stephen. So my point with this is that by getting all the pieces lined up, and that's really all this is just getting the board set. By getting the pieces lined up, you unleash your team, you engage the collective wisdom, experience, and knowledge of people, but you do it in a framework where things don't go crazy. Okay? I had a conversation with several coordinators earlier today, and they were great conversations on a lot of different topics, but I was just talking about like coordinator compensation, for instance. How did we go from a model where I was only getting 1% to where we were having the team contribute as well? Okay? And he's like, oh, I think that there might be some resistance from this or this or that, whatever. And by the way, they're right, there can be. And so I didn't just go to the team and go, like, haha, give me a pay raise, because I'm worth it. Don't you love me? No, like there was a process of how to think through that, identify the influencers, answer the objections in advance, okay, and work through that process. But the best thing I can tell you that this has done for us on the why you should, and then we'll kind of move on. The best thing it's done for us is that it has allowed me to not be afraid to make tough calls. Okay? Because I know I've earned it. When we've made those tough decisions, we've earned it. We've gone through the process. We've analyzed it. Like the goal with science is that you basically want to be able to falsify something. Okay? Before I ever go to the team, I've done that. I've gone like, what are all the holes in this game? But again, not through anxiety, not through sleepless nights, not through any of that, through sitting down with a pad of paper, sitting down with some trusted advisors, following a system and a process to do this, and let's go. Let's go. All right? So let's talk a little bit about sort of how we've done it. Okay, for the last, I want to say 5 years now, and by the way, none of this was mine. None of this was mine, I told you. I'm the guy in the wilderness going, hey, look, there's the dude who has this stuff, but I'm also the guy that's felt its effects, I think, more than anyone. For about 5 years now, we have had a day in December, and we do just an all-day planning meeting. And what started as just calls with me and Josh years ago kind of got to a point where he said, hey, man, we need to make some big changes based off the things you're feeling and what we've talked about. If we're going to do this, we need to get Carpenter aligned. We need to make sure that he's on the same page, our DVM. And by the way, my perspective, and some of you, I don't know if you can relate to this, my perspective was this. Me and John have a fantastic relationship. He trusts me. He's empowered me to make these decisions. He'll back us up. And Josh goes, I know he will, but why? And I go, well, because he trusts me, because I've earned credibility with him. And he goes, right, so he's going to back you up because you're you, not because it's the right thing to do. And I said, okay, that's a pretty fair point. That's a pretty fair point. So I said, all right, great. What do we need to do then? How can we create a space where we can kind of earn that right? And so he said, we got to have time. We got to have time. So we set aside a day in December. And December is kind of a busy month for literally everybody. But we set aside a day, and we spent 8 hours with me, Josh Muller, and John Carpenter locked in a tiny little room going, hey, here's some of the stuff we want to do. Here's why we think it's important. And John was like, that sounds good. And then Josh dove in and was like, and here's the steps. Okay? But by the end of that, John felt so much more confident. By the end of that, John said, hey, can we do this again? This was cool. Like, I feel like I actually have some stuff. And I was like, we absolutely can. And so this has become a thing. The next year, it was me and Josh and John again. And then we added Nick Matlack, and we added Kelly Martins, and we added Marissa Mayer. And so we have just some of our key influencers together in this space where there's no distractions, there's no interruptions. It's just us and the program. Where have we been? Where are we now? Where are we going? You know, where have we been? Where are we now? Where are we going? And that's an easy framework if you're ever curious how to even start these conversations. Okay, throughout this stuff, guys, all these initiatives that we've had, you know, I've said so many times in TGP, it's not that we have the best territory, we're not the best reps, we're not the most innovative, we're really not. We're just a little more curious than other people. But I think we found a way to not let our curiosity steamroll the team. Because that's an easy thing to do. You come out of a meeting like this and you feel inspired because you heard these great speakers and they did such a good job explaining something, and you go back to your team with nothing but like passion. And you're like, we're gonna do this. And they're like, why? And you're like, because Curtis does. Okay, I said that one time, and I won't mention who on my team, well, no, I won't mention who on my team. I was like, we should do this because Curtis does. And they looked at me dead-eye and they went, you're not Curtis. And I was like, you're fired, okay? Like, I don't have the authority to do that, but I'm gonna try, okay? Anyway, no, there's literally nothing else I can say there that's good. So, the goal is proactive planning, okay? And as a way to think multiple steps ahead. This allows you to be proactive versus reactive, okay? And this just can limit that feeling that you have as a leader of always running around in circles. There's just always the next thing to chase. And there's never a point you outgrow this. I just want you all to know that. Like, that's the good and bad news. That's the good and the bad news. Like, every stress and strain and pressure you feel in your program right now, and you see you've identified that bottleneck because you live it. It's the space you exist in, okay? Not all the time, but you know that bottleneck. You're going to solve that bottleneck. I promise you that. But then what's going to happen is you're going to find another one. And that's frustrating sometimes. But that's what you have to do if you're not going to be complacent in the place that you are. But if you have a strategy, you don't have to live with so much stress and anxiety. Okay, we're about to dive into the handout, but let me give you this one last metaphor I always use with my managers, with my development. When you're a rep, I always use the analogy of like a football team or a football coach. You know, when you're a rep, guys, you're a lineman. Like, your assignment is like, stick your man, just block that dude, chop his knees, take him out, okay, sweep the leg. That's not an authorized football move. All right? But that's all you do. And I go, but the reality is, as you progress, like, let's say that now all of a sudden you're the quarterback, your vision of the field must increase. Okay? You're like, your vision of the field must increase. That's the call of leadership. So now it's not just about this one dude, stick your man, run your route. No, now it's about, I need to read the defense, I need to know the plays, I need to be in communication with the coach. There's a lot more responsibilities. That's kind of what happens as you start to elevate as a coordinator and as a leader. Okay? The next step after that is like, you're a coach. You're not just worried about like reading the defense right now. Now you have to think about the whole flow of the game. You know what I'm saying? You got to think about what's happening right now, what's coming, what's happened previously that set the context for where we are right now. All right? But ultimately the goal has got to be that you're so far back from this thing. It's not that you're not involved in it, but you're the GM. You're not even so much worried about this game. This game does matter. This game does matter tremendously. But really what you're more focused on is the next 2 to 3 seasons. That's what we want to be as leaders. That's how you achieve some calm and some plan and some stability in your life and in your business. And I think we've heard that message so compellingly yesterday at the lifestyle panel. You know, the way Matt Graves is able to plan out his training and his travel and things like that. And the way Luke Mills has intentionally strategic planning applied to like his family and his business, so he's honoring and reflecting these different priorities. And the way Josh has 8 streams of income, and like he's keeping up with everything on that. Like, for anyone that works with Josh, do you ever feel like Josh is the bottleneck in what you do with him? Probably not, and that's just because of that focus and intentionality he's had. So here's how my quick version of this, okay? And there's so many great things to this. That's why we gave you the handout to give you some examples and resources. But if you want the simplest version of this ever, like you just have not approached it this way, here's what I always do, okay? Anytime I have an issue I'm trying to confront, I think on paper. That's my thing. I have to have a pad and a pen in front of me, okay? I write down whatever challenge we're trying to face, and I have 3 steps that I do. First step is I list all my influencers. Okay? Who are all the people that are going to be impacted by this thing? There's a thing, I need to change the thing because the thing makes me want to quit, okay? Or the thing is limiting our growth, or the thing is introducing stress, or the thing is causing a situation that's not fair with people on our team. There's a thing, And the thing isn't right. We need to address the thing. So the first thing you have to do is identify all your influencers. This is going to affect our CSPs. This could affect our our division manager. Could even affect a few high-level DMs in some cases. But you need to identify who are the influencers. Okay, that's such an important step because just by doing that thought exercise of who is this going to impact, that's going to tell you who do I need to have quality conversations with. You'll see the value of that? Have you ever been blindsided by something that happened in the team and you know it was good, and then randomly, like, the top DM in your division that has a high level of influence just, like, comes in out of nowhere and, like, chop blocks you? You're like, dude, where did you come from? Okay, you've done nothing here, and now all of a sudden you're just like a roadblock. Well, you know, you want to improve your vision of the field so you can see some of those roadblocks coming. Okay, so I list all my influencers. The second thing I do is I think myself full. I think myself full. And what I mean by that is that I will then I will try to identify best practices, okay? So here's a challenge. I know, I see the blinky light too. There's no siren, so I assume we're okay. That or one of y'all really does not like my talk and you pull the alarm, and that's not cool. I thought we were all friends. So here's the thing. When I say think myself full, you always want to start from a place of let's not reinvent the wheel if we don't have to. Would y'all agree with that? Like, let's identify best practices. Let's say that you're starting from scratch and you have to figure out coordinator compensation. You know what I would do? I would try to find the top 10 divisions in the company and say, how do they approach coordinator compensation? Doesn't mean that's what you have to do, but I think that's a hell of a good start. You with me on that? If you feel like your shift selection right now is not happening in a way that's putting your best people in your best shows, great. I would go to the top 5 divisions that had the most developed key events program and strategy, which you're going to hear a little more about later today. Same thing. I would then go, who are those top divisions? What are they doing? Doesn't mean we have to do that, but it's a hell of a good place to start. Okay? So what are other resources? Is there a great talk in Vector Connect? Could you reach out to Josh or someone else for some support? All right? So first thing is to list your influencers. Second thing is you want to think yourself full. And then the last thing is you want to write yourself empty. Think yourself full, write yourself empty. And then I just brain dump, man. I just brain dump. What's that thought cloud thing, you know, where like you take something and you keep like spider webbing out? Guys, like if you saw my notebooks, it looks like a serial killer, okay? Like I'm slaying CPO. I don't know what I'm doing, right? But I look like a madman. Like I saw my son Asher was like scribbling something, and I realized he was doing like this thought cloud thing, but it was like this ghetto 4-year-old version of it. It's just like, wow, he's spending time with me in an unproductive way. Okay, so let's take a look here real quick at the handout that we gave you. This is, on one side it says 2017 Annual Strategic Planning Meeting. This is just to give you an example, because sometimes it's overwhelming when you hear, yeah, we spent 8 hours with DVMs and we just worked on stuff in life. All right, this is just meant to model, just to give you an example. You know, we go through here and we had a kickoff talk where we just kind of go through the different growth levers, you know, increasing the size of your team, increasing the amount of events you do, increasing your event average, and working on the structure of your program. There's great talks on this elsewhere. It's not our focus right now. We always like to talk about the wins. You know, when you can have time with your influencers, you should always share about what is going well so that way we can honor that, the good work that's gone into it, and continue to develop them. You know, what is our strategy, okay? And this just, the cohesion strategy had to do with like crossing state lines on some things. There were some areas where we were taking on a little bit of water, there was some tension, and we wanted to make sure that we took the time we needed. Going through vision and capacity, you know, just figuring out what is possible and what are some of the initiatives we have going forward. And then we also do just take that time to do some stats reviews. And by the way, like we share, I pull together a lot of stats. I'm happy to share with you guys all as well, but we do basically our own divisional events quantum that shows the last few years, events, sales, growth, things like that. We show for all of our leadership group, all their stats and averages for the booth. And so that way the DVMs, it's interesting because, you know, they take it in the best possible way. They're like, wow, I see there's kind of this and this and this. There's some opportunity here for this kind of rep. Hey, all of a sudden, that's when the DVMs are going, hey, by the way, who is this person coaching with this year? Or who are they mentoring with? You know, so that way they just feel more connected to the results that you're getting. Not in an intrusive way, but in ways so that they can just support you better. You follow me on that? Okay? If you flip this over, let's take a look on this. It says hot button conversations. This is just one of my favorite handouts that Josh has had. And this is something that we have modeled because if you really want to know what this looks like, anytime I have something that I start to feel really passionate about or I start to get really concerned about, I go through those steps on my own. That whole, you know, identify influencers, think myself full, write myself empty, okay? It's just my own little weird three-tiered thing. But when it actually comes down to working this stuff out, guys, I don't do this by myself. Like part of having the vision of the field is you have to invite the perspective of people you trust. And so if you really want to know the thing, I do this kind of stuff really consistently. as far as like trying to address challenges or issues or positive change. It's not always negative stuff, but positive changes we want to make. I then take that to the people that I trust. Okay, me and Kelly then take that, and she does the same thing. She has things she'll feel passionate about. She goes through those disciplines. Okay, like it's a partnership. But we come together, and every 4 to 6 weeks, me, Kelly, and Josh Muller actually have a big old call together, and we do this because it's important. You know, we do this because it's how you play chess versus checkers. You with me on that? We're not just responding to king me, okay? Like that's not how you operate a multi-million-dollar business. No, man. We got to set the board. We got to think ahead. We got to figure out what's going to happen when we do this. Okay? So every 4 to 6 weeks, we sit down and we do a call. We spend 2 hours on the phone, me, Kelly, and Josh, just working on stuff. What do we work on? I don't know. Depends on what time of year. Could be state fairs. Could be mall strategy. Could be how are we going to outfit, how are we going to add $20,000 to our fund so we can buy a bunch of deluxe booths? It could be, hey, someone is really having a hard time right now that's been a leader on our team, but now the results are really suffering, so they're below the Mendoza line that we have for leadership. How do we honor their level of contribution while still holding firm on the levels that we've established and the team has agreed to? These are real hard conversations. Y'all follow me on that? And I don't need to do this alone. You don't either, by the way. If you're putting yourself on Coordinator Island, please invite some guests. Okay, like don't be on Coordinator Island. It's a lonely place. Like you got like a volleyball named Wilson, and it's just you and a trimmer. Like I don't know why you got to do that to yourself. Okay. Guys, third-party perspective is so valuable. Just like I said, third-party examples, like what are other top programs doing? Third-party perspective is just as useful. And it doesn't have to be Josh Muller or Curtis J. or Brian Carter, okay? But finding another person that you trust and that will hold you accountable, will not allow you guys to be an echo chamber of, oh yeah, this is tough, or oh yeah, my DVM sucks, and so does yours, oh yeah, my team is difficult, and blah. Not that, someone that will have real conversations and challenge you. I'm so blessed that because of the way we have run our organization, we have welcomed the influence of Seth Kinzer and Jason Jeffrey and Curtis J. and Luke Mills and Jonathan Schmidt and so many other people, and Dante Reynolds. We have a lot of sounding boards. We have a lot of people whose perspectives we're open to. And by the way, it keeps us sharp. We're not afraid of that. All right, once you've gone through this, like I said, we do our calls with our leadership group. Once a campaign, we sit down with all of our leadership group, which is basically all the CSPs. That's where we decide everything policy related. If our team wanted to completely tank our ROR system, they would do that at one of those meetings. Okay? They would have to work their way around me, but the reality is that's where it would happen. Our team knows that. Does your team know how they could actually address policies and issues that have led to frustration in their mind? I bet a lot of times they don't. I bet a lot of policies y'all have are really well thought out, and they're there for a reason, and they were all established 3 years before half your team ever joined Cutco. They don't know why. Have you done the work to resell some of your team on why? Or have you ignored that? Have you not had this hot button conversation? Have you not even done that with yourself, more or less with other people? Y'all follow me on that? So if you look through here really quick, okay, and for time's sake, this is probably where we'll wrap. All right, on here, this is just talks about how to go through this. How to schedule a face-to-face meeting. Hey, I want to talk about how we can best support you with X, whatever challenging thing you need to work on. It goes through the 5 quality questions. What do you want to achieve? Why is it important to you? How are we going to get there? How do you see the events team or the key events or whatever it is fitting into that? And what's the one thing I can do so you would feel fully supported to make that happen? Guys, don't overpromise, don't overcommit. What's the one thing? And if they can't find it, help them identify it. All right? Listen, take great notes, and then test their commitment. All right? If they're not thinking too hard, if they're not thinking big enough for themselves, it's okay to challenge that as a leader who loves and supports them. At the same time, if their stuff is not realistic or their plan is not sufficient to get there, it's okay to walk them through that and show them that based on how much they're willing to work or how much they want to travel, it's not going to equal up to the number that they wanted to do. Like I've had those conversations with people on the team where they grew 30% from one year to the next, and they're like, great, I'll grow 30% again this year. And I'm like, well, what caused the 30% growth over the last year? And like, oh, I got onto the state fair team. I'm like, great. Are you going to be invited to another state fair team this year? And they're like, well, no, but I mean, I'm better. And I was like, I agree. And so that means you should sell 10% more because you're better. So let's find the other channels that are going to make up that extra difference that you want to see in your own growth. You with me on that? Like that's an example of how you do that with someone in a really supportive way by using just real information and real data. So let me see real quick. Let me go back to my notes one more time, and then I'll surrender the mic for the final time. NET meeting 2019. Okay, so on here, simple steps. Jot this down real quick if you're a note taker, and then we'll peace out. All right, when you think about the first thing is just who and how often. Who should you do this with? How often should it happen? Okay? Well, that comes back again to knowing your influencers. I think the biggest influencers in your program, it's going to be all the leaders and CSPs on your team, whoever has a very high level of influence, and your DVM and your coordinators. I think those are that's the triad. You can never separate. You should never try to make moves without getting all three of those in some form of alignment. Okay? How often should you do it? More often than you think. More often than you think. With the DVMs, it's once a year where we spend an entire day. Okay? With our leadership group, it's once a campaign. With the coordinators, it's once a month. But however much time you think you need, when you're first getting this ball rolling, you probably need a little bit more. And then when you think about how to do it productively, okay, here's the last thing. Just ask yourself these questions. What do we want to accomplish? Okay, so it's the what. Why do we want to do it? What do we want to do? Have deluxe booths. Why do we want to do it? To improve our visual display, to get us into more shows that our current level of display doesn't get us to, and to change the perceptions customers have of the price point of Cutco as soon as they walk up to it. That's why. We've identified the why. How are we going to do it? What, why, how? How are we going to do it? We're going to throw money at the problem. But how are we going to get that money? And then the last thing, what is the training, tools, or support that'll be necessary to accomplish this? What is the training, tools, and support that'll be necessary to accomplish this change? And you might think about something like securing funding as like, well, that's not a support thing. Well, it kind of is. It kind of is. Like if we're going to take money from the team or a DVM, support might look like accountability. How are we going to show them progress and that we're being good stewards of their resources? Maybe instead of training, it's like, how are we going to have this conversation with the team and bring it to them? Kind of falls under the what, but it still is that same thing. All right? What are we going to do? Why are we going to do it? How are we going to do it? What are support, tools, and training? Guys, if nothing else, I hope this talk just stimulates you to feel like I can be more in control of this. I can be more in control of this. It's okay to fly by the seat of your pants and feel that fire under you at all times, but you don't have to live in a state of anxiety or stress or pressure. We've had very real challenges in the last year, very real challenges, and I hate it because most of them had to do with my own limited view of the field, and I feel the effects of that, and I take ownership for it. That's okay. But I also know that going through these, we will set up systems that will be more sustainable, they'll be better for everyone, and whoever the players are long term, it's going to benefit us all. Thank you very much.